Johnstone, and this is our project, Building by Building Billing. So currently, besides auxiliary buildings on campus, Western has one energy bill for the entire campus. So individual buildings and departments are not responsible for their own energy bill and are unaware of the amount of energy actually being used. So our idea is to create a decentralized billing system, which would go from one bill for the entire campus to a building by building billing structure. And this would make individual buildings and departments more responsible for their own energy use and help create incentives and So it help create incentives for reducing their energy consumption and just make them generally aware of actually how much it is per month. So the purpose of our project is to guide the operations of the university in achieving a higher standard in energy, waste, and water conservation. And we would also consider the impacts on the environment that our energy use has, as well as the campus's economic performance. And this new billing system would create greater energy awareness to students and faculty, so everyone knows how much each building is actually consuming, and from that it can actually make a difference in changing that. So combining with the financial incentives for reducing energy use, as well as energy consumption, departments would be more likely to cooperate and actually change their behaviors if they had incentives and knew they were reducing energy. So Western always has set a great example of environmental and sustainable issues, and these standards that Western has set would be reflected through the active progress towards energy conservation practices. So this project would, in fact, push us further towards sustainability and environmental awareness throughout campus. And we talked to several different colleges who adopted similar billing systems we were proposing, and we're going to talk about a couple of those. First, we talked to Iowa State University, and in 2008, they adopted what they call a Living Green Loan Fund, which essentially sets money aside for energy conservation projects on campus. And it's purely volunteer-based, it's not competitive, and it was fully backed by the students and faculty, so it's a pretty big success. But they realized that individual departments and buildings had no financial incentives to actually reduce their energy use. So that's when they incorporated a decentralized billing process. And as soon as they did, they saw 11 projects come into play. They saw a huge amount of savings, and it was just a great success once the actual decentralized billing process came into play. So that was something worth mentioning. Next, we got Illinois State University, and their decentralized billing plan was actually one of the top 3 plans for their campus-wide climate action plan. And they successfully metered and distinguished how much each department, school, and building should pay, but they failed to actually get the final approval by campus leaders because of a fear that the departments were going to spend the money elsewhere instead of actually on energy reduction. But regardless of that, they still distribute the bill to each department and building, and just showing the bill, showing this energy use and creating this awareness, they've seen a huge drop in energy use, and they're saving a lot of money on campus. Okay.
So we had some interviews here, and we go through a couple of them here. Kellen Rosenberg and Carol Barley. We went up to them, and they were not so enthused about our ideas of infrastructural change because they felt that there was cheaper ways to lower energy uses, and they suggested behavioral practices instead. I see how behavioral practices are cheaper, but I also see how infrastructural practices are fixed. And so sometimes behavioral practices are necessarily not going to work because people won't adopt them. And infrastructural practices, if studied properly, could actually show real-time savings instead of just trying to get people to work with you in a large group. It'd be a smaller, more condensed unit. They also thought that we were going to have a hard time getting faculty support and office support, and I can see where this comes into play because Iowa State, one of the things that really worked for them is that everybody was very cooperative within the group, and it was more of a cooperative family, and it was kind of like building this very conducive, tight group, and centralized. People got really thrown off by that, especially they got really thrown off by it. They thought that we would have to rewire the whole campus and all this and that, but really it's just monitoring the buildings. And so the monitoring of the buildings, especially for heat and electricity, are already available on our campus. So they're pretty easy to monitor per building.
And again, we talked to several people on campus. Tim Wynn, the Director of Facilities Management, was a really big help to us. And one of the biggest challenges we talked about was just when you have multiple departments in schools all sharing the same building, it's really hard to distinguish who's using what, how much of a certain utility. So it's difficult to divide the actual energy bill, and there'd be a lot of resistance from certain departments, saying that's unfair, how much they have to pay, and that sort of thing. And it can take a really long time to properly manage, monitor, and budget utilities per building. So you really have to have a staff member, or at least somebody who's aware of this and can fit this into the budget. Tim said we should start looking back at least 3 years at the utility budget and create an average. So each building would actually know how much they have to pay for. And instead of a monetary amount, he suggested using kilowatts per hour, and then just give them a base number to go off of, and that's their target goal. If they get under, that's fantastic. If not, they have some work to do. So moving on, we have Greg Huff, who also is a facilities person. He's the quality assurance coordinator, and he gives more technical details than Tim actually did. He brought up the point to solve the multi-departmental and different schools in one building. He suggested using Western's Facilities and Management Information System database, and it's already set up with all buildings on campus, and it can break it down by square footage, who's using what building at what time of the year. So from that, you can kind of modify it and get an idea of what to create for an actual budget. He went on to say it's really difficult to track actual usage. You almost have to hook up data loggers and other monitoring devices to each room, which would be really costly. And right now, it's just not really possible. But he said his best plan would be to still prorate by square footage, and just because splitting the energy usage without actually considering departmental use would just need too much resistance, so it's not worth trying.
So for some of our research and analysis, we use this 10 by 12 program to kind of base our ideas off of, because she already had it well laid out for the artisan parks, biology, and chemistry, and she already laid out the usage of electricity and gas. It's not shown, or electricity and heat. It's not shown here on the full table. We'll have to add that in. Basically, the support of the department conservational coordinators could really be helpful in what we want to do, because we feel like piggybacking these kind of things is really what our project is all about. In most of the other schools had some kind of green loan fund or some kind of overheading of sustainability, and then all these things were kind of underneath it. And so we really feel like this fits well within what we're trying to do, and we think that they could easily just slide right in and without much of a problem, as long as we utilized all the departments and all our staff members and all the resources and exhausted what we needed to do as far as getting campus support. Then in our conclusion, we believe this is going to be an extensive project. We don't foresee this to be a project that's going to end next year or even begin next year. We think this is going to be a 5 to 7 year research project that's going to need to have, that's going to need time because of our economical budget. For one, is our economical time period in our country is kind of up and down. We're not sure where things are going, and we really, innovation and different things like that are going to come into effect to allow our campus to continue forward. We're talking about monitoring each building regardless of whether we actually implement the billing structure and go to the accounting side and have the accountants actually break up the billing structure. even just monitoring the buildings and allowing those people to see what's going on is really helpful. One of the teams, the chemistry team at Iowa University, had a contest in 2 buildings, and they had a contest to see who was going to save the most energy. And so that's why I kind of feel like it fits into Carol Berry's program, because just implementing this itself created behavioral changes within people, and it just created kind of a fun way to, you know, engage in sustainable activities. And so that was really important. Besides that, we feel like the most important thing that's going to be is the departmental cooperation. It's really essential to understand that there's going to be a gray area. There's not always going to be a possibility to break down to a finite detail every user at every given single square footage of the building, and it's not going to always be perfect. And there has to be just an agreement that that's okay, and if that's not okay, then that's not going to really work, because that's one of the things that really helped push this program along. And the other thing that's really cool about it is it's non-competitive. It's not like we're all competing for you know, lower usage, and it's going back to the departments, not necessarily back to the building owners. And we like that a lot. So for our future works, we got Marty McFly in the dock here. They're gonna go back in time and tell us what's up. But yeah, we want to finish our research. So basically, we need someone to continue what we've been already starting. We had a very limited time, so to finish the research as far as like looking into the accounting side of it is one thing that we didn't get a big chance to do. Looking into maybe using Carol's for buildings and really breaking down that energy use and seeing if they can break it up in square footage or by user, however that may work. And then we were hoping that somebody could get access to this famous database, because as a student right now we're not allowed access, so maybe they could talk earlier in the program to get access to that database so that they can gain more information. The other thing that would be helpful is to talk to professors on campus. We have a lot of just general resources here. We have engineers, we have planners, you know, we have architects on campus that can assess some of these buildings, and maybe they can go out and, you know, join together and utilize what we have for resources on campus as far as professionals. We suggest that we start with one building and move on from there and just kind of get one analysis of a building, and just go with electricity first. You know, take the easiest application possible and get an idea of what's happening. And then the university staff itself can work with students and maybe find a possible way to allow students to get work study or put them into some kind of 2-credit class, or maybe even the sustainability credits of some kind to allow students to be a part of this educational, sustainable experience on campus. And that's it. Yeah, I realized that we have one slide out of order, and I talked, and then he talked, and then I talked.
Comments?
I don't know what internalize means.
You didn't do that?
I didn't really, I mean, it's like, basically it's one bill for the
Okay.
entire campus.
It was
Okay.
like
We're gonna
same
actually-
definition.
Yeah, because you have like all of these bullet points underneath decentralized, but like nothing under internalized, and I was really confused because you didn't really explain what internalized was.
Okay, we'll definitely add that.
Yeah, so just like say that it's what we have right now.
Okay.
Hey, would you mind doing that pin? Thanks.
Did you explain what the famous promise was? Like,
I mean, barely, I was trying to waste time, but
okay, yeah, I might have missed it.
maybe I'll do little bullet points or something for it, but it's essentially I can track usage per building, like what department's actually using how much square footage and how much percentage of the total building, and that sort of thing, so there's more details on that one, but I can add that.
So kind of similar, I don't know, maybe I just didn't grasp it fast enough.